Welcome to the Be Yourself, Be Heard podcast. My name is Dr. Faisal Shaikh. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. In this podcast, I'll be talking to professionals and exploring their views on neurodiversity. So I'm pleased to be joined today by Mike Ross, leader of the Hull City Council. And Mike has been a councillor in the Hull region for more than 20 years. And he also has his family and himself living in Hull. Welcome to the podcast, Mike. It's a pleasure having you.
Pleased to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you. So our podcast focuses on exploring your experiences and views on neurodivergence, and also a bit about yourself and what has shaped you growing up. So if I may start by getting you to tell us a bit about yourself, Mike. Who is Mike Ross, and essentially what are your origins and upbringing? And then we can take it from there.
Yes, sure. Well, I mean, as you say, most people in this city will know me from being a councillor now for over 20 years. I was first elected back in 2002. It feels like a lifetime ago in many ways. I came to Hull, sort of working in reverse order. I came to Hull for university. I arrived September 2000 to do a degree here. Had no real experience in the city before that. My granddad did live here for a year or so back in the very late 1920s, around the time the great general strike. He was Salvation Army family, so they got moved around, and he did spend a year or so here as a child. So I think that was the only real connection I had to the place at that time. Before university, I actually grew up in Sussex. I came from Sussex, fairly middle class upbringing. My dad was a very established GP in the town. My mum actually was also in local government. She was on 3 different councils down in Sussex where they had a tier system of local government. So real sort of a background of involvement in the community through both of their careers, and real also, I'm sure we'll sort of come on to some of this as well, but sort of real examples around what being involved and serving others was all about.
And I was going to ask about that. So what motivated you to get into politics? And so presumably your mum's background?
I mean, I was certainly aware of local government role through seeing my mum do it as a councillor herself. So I got involved in helping deliver leaflets for her when I was from the age of 10. So I've been doing this a long time. I got more involved in the Liberal Democrats as I got older. I worked for an MP for a bit before coming to university. So I was around the sort of the political life from a very early age, and got more and more involved. I always like to think that it's something that I would have been potentially interested in, even if my mother hadn't been a councillor. Of course, I'll never know.
Yeah.
And I certainly am not doing it simply because she was involved.
Yeah.
I do it because I think I have the skills for it and can make a difference through doing it. But certainly it opened my interest in it.
But it definitely gave you the exposure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And helped me sort of see what it was all about.
Yeah. Sure. So just building on that then, Mike, what do you believe has shaped you growing up? I'm trying to get to the values that have shaped you growing up as the person that you've become.
Yeah, so as I say, I have both my parents were in roles, I'd say, which were about public service. You look at other members of the wider family, there's teachers and other people in medical roles as well. So a lot of people involved in medical service, in public service.
Sure.
And I think that sort of spirit, so that is not to say that I don't see the value of business, of course I do, and very much so as the council. But for me, what was certainly something that drove me and drove, I think, my family was around serving others. And so that, I think, is what's led to me taking on this role as a councillor. It is what drives me in that role as well. So it's not, I don't do it around what I can get out of it. It is around what I can do for others by being in this role.
Okay, so let's turn our attention now to neurodivergence, which is the essence of this podcast. And can you maybe tell us a little bit about your views on neurodivergence, or any experience you might have had of neurodivergence within your close circle or family or beyond?
I think this is an area that certainly has risen up the public policy agenda over recent years. There's more awareness of it. I think that's led to more debate. I think also more visibility and awareness of individuals' own needs as a result of that over recent years. Certainly, I think when looking at my own childhood and family members, there was definitely evidence of people within the family who demonstrated neurodiverse traits and have gone on later in life to get diagnosis, which I think they found helpful for them in terms of helping them really not necessarily make changes in their lives now, but to help understand their own ways and what they experience in their childhood and so on. So I think certainly for me, growing up, there was definitely a lot of evidence around in the family, and that I think had an influence upon us in terms of, just would affect what happened in life as well.
And with that experience and knowledge of neurodivergence within your extended family, what has been your views about embracing difference, especially with people who have neurodivergence? Because there seems to be still gaps in that area, I think, and you can maybe shed light on that, both personally but also professionally as a policymaker.
So I think there's a couple of things I'd say on this. One is around... there's something for me around recognising everybody's individuality, and actually both in terms of policy terms, recognising that the danger sometimes of a one-size-fits-all approach. And from an organisational point of view, one-size-fits-all is easier because it's probably cheaper, it's easier to roll out, but doesn't necessarily get the best results because not everybody is the same. I think the other side of it for me is around, again, sort of referencing family members. Actually, we shouldn't necessarily see it as a thing that just holds people back. And obviously, there will be times when people's neurodivergent nature will cause challenge, but we should also see the strengths and opportunities that it gives people in terms of just the different skills that they might have that others that don't have those traits won't be able to do. So actually, it's about, in that sense, whether it's in a personal way or in a working professional way and so on, actually making the most of people's talents because of their neurodiversity rather than actually seeing it as a barrier to getting things done.
And I think these are very powerful things you're saying. Like, I think individuality, focusing on that, I think that I like that. Plus linking it with emphasizing and focusing on people's talents as well, strengths and talents. And that's a good point you make. And from a policy perspective, I've not heard that before, but I think this is very, very true. One size fits all is an easier, sometimes cheaper way of doing things. But
and particularly, if I talk around my field, local government, I think it's widely recognised local government is under pressure financially, and so there will be from some that drive to do what is the cheapest model for understandable reasons. I don't sort of knock that. But whether that necessarily leads to the best results for either the residents it's seeking to serve or the workforce as well, actually we need to just be a bit more canny about how we do things sometimes.
Let's now go back to yourself again, and now I'd like us to maybe shed light on or reflect on a challenge or a sacrifice that you'd undergone that may have given you an opportunity to learn lessons from, so that our audience can also listen to and learn from as well.
I mean, that's a really interesting question. I guess there's an element, if I look at, and perhaps which sounds sort of woe is me, but I think public service, and certainly this sort of role, is it as much as I have profile now through being leader of the council, it isn't the case of necessarily people might think, they will live a lovely life and sort of get all the sort of wonderful benefits of being in sort of high profile role like that. It's not that straightforward, actually. And you do make sacrifices. I think both in terms of time, financial potentially, could I be earning something more, doing something else, but more actually just in terms of impact on the wider family as well. So that impact upon us as a family unit is really challenging. This is not a straightforward 9-to-5 job. It is a demanding job in terms of the time calls are constant. So I think that is probably one of the big sacrifices that I make doing this, in the sense of actually sort of being ever constant, and that does lead to, it's fair to say, some tensions at times around the impact it has on the wider family as well.
Yeah, no, I think and that's very insightful of you to talk about some of the challenges. Sometimes a high-profile role that you're performing can bring to one's other aspects of life, including family, and that is a real challenge. And sometimes the sacrifice that you have to give is not something that other people see, do they?
No, and again, sort of, I'm not sort of asking for sort of violins to be brought out of it. I choose to do this, but just recognising that does have a wider impact, and actually how you can balance all the demands is sometimes there's no sort of handbook to help you guide through what the right choices to make on these things. Yeah.
But I think sometimes the awareness can help people see that the high profile does come with a lot of responsibilities and sacrifices. So it does hopefully improve that compassion of people towards people in positions.
Yes, and also just recognising yes, I'm Councillor Mike Ross, the title, but I'm also Mike Ross, the person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that as well, staying with yourself, Mike, what would you reflect on as a moment of pride or a moment of like that pride could be big wins or small wins?
Yes,
share. Yeah.
I often talk about how, as leader of the council, I have a tremendous privilege to be involved in some amazing schemes and decisions, and some of tremendous scale that will take place over a period of years and have big, high-profile impact for the city, which is great. I mean, I really sort of value being able to be involved in those issues. But actually, for me, I always go back to the fact that as a local councillor, as a city councillor, I'm elected by residents of the ward, and serving them is a really important thing for me. So when I help, and I often think about one particular resident who I helped once with a challenging piece of casework, and she was so thankful about the impact that made on her life. So it's actually the individual casework wins for the residents that are actually what sort of motivate me in this as well.
So those could be again invisible, but they do make a big difference.
They won't be high profile. They will quite often only affect that one individual, but knowing that you've helped that person is a tremendous thing.
And that's important to mention, Mike. But from the other big projects that you say that you've been maybe working on or can take some time, like years, can you maybe zoom in on one particular thing that you've been personally involved with and you're passionate about?
I will go back to when I was portfolio holder for education. I won't talk about some of the more current ones. But when I was education portfolio holder, there was the Building Schools for the Future project, which we inherited. It was a government scheme that got started before we became the administration in 2006, but wasn't completed yet. It was underway. And when we took over the council then, we went into the election saying that if we took control, we would look to make pretty big changes to the scheme. We faced some opposition at the time from people saying, well, if you did that, we could lose the funding or we put it at risk and so on. And we were clear, no, we're not happy with the scheme on the table. We think it can be improved. And actually, we did win that battle, not just internally with the council, but also with the government, who were happy for us to make some fairly significant changes. And I like to think that was for the betterment of the scheme, and it's led to better outcomes in terms of the project. So this was a project that was around essentially rebuilding or making big modifications to pretty much all the secondary schools in the city. And hopefully what we did led to better outcomes as a result.
So I think the message that one could pick up from that is that if you believe in something, stick with that. Sometimes there'll be voices of opposition, but...
and I think for us, the other side of it is also having clarity as well. So we were very clear about what we wanted to do, and that gave, although as I say, there was potentially opposition, it at least meant that the office corps, the council, knew where we wanted to be and was tasked with trying to get there. If we simply said, "Oh, we don't like it," that wouldn't have given the clarity to people to say, "Well, okay, well, what can we do instead?" Yeah. So clarity is quite important as well in this example.
Let's now talk a little bit about authenticity, because that is an area where sometimes people with neurodivergence struggle with, because there's a pressure on conforming and taking on certain roles that may not be authentic for themselves. And a lot of the work, therapeutic work around helping people retain their individuality is to be authentic. What is the authentic version of Mike Ross? And what is your formula around living authentically?
Yeah, so this is, so in answering this question, I don't want to in any way sort of present the case that I'm a different Mike Ross on camera, say, to what I'm in real life. But there is an element of, obviously, you have to be the part when I'm being a counsellor. So yeah, I don't dispute that either. I guess the other side of this is, given going back to the point I was saying before around it's not a 9 to 5, it is quite hard for me to switch off from being counsellor Ross to the extent I sort of feel sort of constantly on, particularly if I'm in the city. If I'm in the city, so yeah, if I'm walking around city centre and stuff like that, for example, I'm very aware that, you know, people do come up and talk to me about anything, and it goes with the territory, and it's fine. I don't mind it, but it just goes with the role. But I guess in terms of who I am, you know, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a son. I like to be a friend to people. I like to try and spend time with family. I'm a Christian. I have beliefs. So I am someone who feels part of the city, even though I'm not from the city. And other aspects, you know, I like my sport. You know, that's another big thing for me. I sort of, if anything, sort of gets me to sort of not think about politics for a bit. It's probably things like sort of listening to the cricket or watching some football and things like that.
No, they're very, very good examples of the authentic version of Mike. I'm sure, as you said, you're the same on camera or off camera, but this is what we're trying to get to, the other roles that you are embracing or working on. And just on the Hull bit, because you've been in Hull for a while now, you still refer to the idea whether Hull is, I mean, do you not see yourself as a Hullensian yet? Or?
I think Hull is one of those sort of places that you need to have lived potentially 3 generations before you're sort of truly of the place. But I like to think sort of I've been adopted by the place, certainly. And I see myself sort of, I'd like to think of myself as one of Hull's biggest advocates.
Sure.
I see that. Sure. I think, obviously, that should go with the role of being leader of the council, but actually, it is, to use your language, an authentic thing for me. I am a big believer in the place, and I think actually Hull is a tremendous place, has a tremendous potential. We've been named as one of the top 25 places in the world to visit this year by National Geographic. There was a Time Out article came out in the last few days around, again, sort of one of the top places to come. Hull has so much going for it. Our job in Hull is to promote that to the rest of the country and the rest of the world as well.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think that's very true. And I'm an advocate of Hull as well. I've been in Hull for nearly 25 years now. So, but I have regarded myself as being Hullensian, just living there maybe 1-2 years. But but it's interesting hearing your perspective on this. So finally, Mike, let's think outside the box. So one of my daughters, while she has neurodivergence and she gets overwhelmed with high-pitched crying noises, and that can sometimes be a challenge for us traveling as a family, because you can imagine airports and airplanes are, having people of all types, including children with toddlers who are crying. And what policy proposal would you provide or think of or suggest for someone like Nawal, or someone like in their position, to help them and their families travel easily, more smoothly?
So I think on this one, I would go back to the point I was making earlier around recognising individuality. And so you raise a specific example there around the impact in that place. If I look at that in broader terms, whether there's a way that there could be legislation that enables or requires organisations to recognise the individual rather than unit, as it were, people's units, then that would be probably where I would want it to. And I recognise that's not simple for many reasons. Not simple for organisations, particularly smaller ones, in terms of impact, in terms of cost and so on. But actually, just a way of recognising that no two people are actually identical, and shouldn't be treated necessarily always in identical manners.
Yeah. But I think it goes back to the earlier point you mentioned, one size fits all is what sometimes is the approach. And I must admit, the airline industry and airports have provided lots of adjustments, such as the Sunflower Scheme, but I don't think they go far enough as to helping someone like Nawal, who's sensitive to hearing crying noises, which can lead to her having a meltdown. So how do we strike the balance where we are promoting that individuality, but also having that organizations that provides rules for everyone else? I think, yeah.
Yes, it's a challenge, and I think this is where there just needs to be increasing promotion of the understanding of what neurodiversity is about as well. And I think that is happening. I think that the danger where we're seeing that public policy debate going now is sort of talk about sort of things like overdiagnosis. And I think actually for me, just recognising actually this shouldn't be an argument about whether too many people are diagnosed or not. It's about how we support those who are.
Yeah. Absolutely,
and that's where
and the challenges that they have, and it's about access as well. I think if someone like Nawal is not able to feel safe or comfortable traveling, she won't travel, or her family won't travel. And I'm not just talking about Nawal. There'll be many other people in Nawal's case as well. So it's ensuring that people have the same equal opportunities. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, on that one, thank you very much, Mike. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning about yourself and your personal life and professional life. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to us. And I'm sure the audience will enjoy many of the things that you've touched on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.